It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be looking ahead to Sunday's SW6 derby. Can we beat the Blues for the second time this season? Also, we'll do the final word on Monday's defeat at Bournemouth, plus loads of your emails as well. And it is the real regular Thursday club today. A return to old ways as Peter Rutzler, he's back. Hello, Peter.
Yeah, I'm in the studio as well. I'm not sure that's happened.
No.
Unless it's a pub, which says a lot about me, I suppose.
Yeah.
And us, I think.
Well,
probably.
quite, yeah. I wasn't going to say that, but, you know.
How you doing?
Really good, yeah. Getting by, ticking over. Joined the new role.
So you're at the Times now. I think that's changed since you were last on. You were at the Athletic.
Yeah, I think, have I been on since I
think
joined?
once,
I think I've been on once.
yeah.
Okay.
Like a fleeting visit again. I'm now at the Times, London football reporter. I think a lot of people have noticed I'm doing a lot of Chelsea, so I spend a lot of time there, which is useful that you got me on for this one.
Yeah,
yes.
But no, it's going really well. Still keep my eye on Fulham when I can. But yeah, it's been nice. I've been down to Southampton, been down to Bournemouth again, which has been nice because I covered them very briefly. A bit of PSG as well, still keeping that in.
Oh, yes.
But yeah.
Good time.
All's well.
Good time to be covering
It is.
PSG.
It is. Yeah. It's funny that you stop covering them and they start doing well. It's
The curse is back.
Jack's here as well. Hello.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
Good, thank you. We obviously, before we do any of this football business, need a quick debrief from your stag at the weekend.
Yeah.
Are you okay 4 days later?
Yeah, I feel fine. I actually felt fine on Tuesday. My voice was a little bit scratchy come Monday, and I didn't have loads left in the tank. But apart from that, I felt very happy all week, glowy, feeling very blessed, very loved. So, and that's not really what you're meant to get off the back of a stag, but I'm just feeling very grateful.
It's really
to be
the wrong
honest.
vibe, that. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
no, it was amazing. I had the best time.
It was a great weekend. Lots of people dying to know how the football match went.
Yes.
So it was kind of Team Fulham versus Team Celtic.
Yeah, they were personalised jerseys. In terms of, my brother just did the most wonderful job in terms of the organisation of all of it, and he deserves a major shout out. And as a Fulhamish listener, I hope you'll like that. But shout out to Tom Collins,
Well done, Tom.
who really did put it together. And yeah, we played an 11-a-side game. It was a bit breathless. It was quite open. It had a 6-a-side score. I think the game ended 9-7. And yeah, so one of the teams was a team based on a Fulham badge that was JJC, and the other one was a Celtic badge that became the Collins Football Club afterwards. So it was great fun. And yeah, it went well. Fulham did win.
Team Fulham won.
Yes, they did.
Fulham
9-7.
beat Celtic. What a day.
It was great. I mean, I played for both sides, so it was okay. I was quite pleased with the way that we performed on both ends. So yeah, it was good. It was really
And
good.
obviously last week we had wasn't a wager as such, but we had a little bit of back and forth about who would score
More goals.
More goals. Can you reveal?
We got a hat-trick each.
I would say
Sammy scored 3 that weren't penalties, but one of them was definitely offside. And I scored 1 which was definitely a penalty. So, we'll kind of give it. I did bag 2 assists as well, though. So I'm going to claim this win. I'm not going to lie to you.
I think that non-penalty goals, the fact that you've got one of yours as a penalty.
Not an offside goal.
Yeah.
Statistic that's never been used before.
Were you both playing up front? Or was one in midfield? Because then that
Bit of
that's
both.
useful.
Yeah, I played sort of as a loose roaming number 10 for a lot of it.
I
Sammy
started
played on
edge.
the wing for a lot of it. So,
Okay.
it's a
Oh
bit
yeah.
I started up front until I realised that the left winger didn't want to track back, so ended up actually not really playing up
No
front.
names there, I see.
Yeah, no names. We're not going to.
I think if he's listening, he'll know. But yeah, very, very fun weekend. And then we went to Thirsk Races, which was good. What annoyed me so much about this is, look, if ever anyone goes to Thirsk Races, right,
The favourite wins.
the favourite wins every race. That's all that happens. If you want to make a load of money, go to Thirsk Races and just back the favourite.
6 out of 7 races, the favourite one. As someone who doesn't back favourites, it wasn't a great day at the races for me.
Some people on the stag came out £300, £400 better, and just all they did was back the favourite every time. I was just fuming. Then won, and then I kind of about 5 or 6 races in, like, realised, okay, I think I've got the trend here. backed the favourites so heavily on race 7, the 640 at Thirsk, Rock of England. If whoever rides Rock of England is listening, I lost so much money on you. It didn't just.
He came last.
It wasn't even
curses.
It wasn't even trying. It wasn't even trying. So Peter, obviously it's great to have you on. Not just because obviously like the Chelsea Fulham link, but we've perfectly aligned this.
It has
That the
been very well
last
aligned.
game was Bournemouth Fulham.
Yeah.
The Rutzler derby. What did you make of it? Obviously it was a disappointing loss for Fulham. I think for me, it's just that missed opportunity, right? The fact that you could have put 6 points between ourselves and Bournemouth. Brighton would have still been in the mix for sure. But given Bournemouth's like fixtures until the end of the season, I think that would have been a pretty killer blow if Fulham had managed to get the win. Even a draw just would have been so good for us, actually. So, yeah, it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow from a Fulham point of view. But from a more neutral take, it is the Rutzler derby after all. What did you make of it?
Yeah, the mood shift is the key thing, right? Bournemouth's run of form has been really poor in a period where they've got their players back. You know, they had their really strong run of form and they had so many injuries to key players. You had Ouattara playing up front. And as you say, to have come into that game off the back of beating Liverpool. But that's just the Fulham way, though. It's just right. Everyone's praising Fulham. That's just, you know, the Fulhamish gods have to realign. Defeat was inevitable, and evidently that was the case after about 60 seconds where Anthony Robinson tumbles. It's like, well, that's the story. But yeah, yes, it's a disappointing result, but I think the nature of these last few games, I think all three of the teams who are on 48 points now, because that's what it is really, isn't it? It's a Conference League shootout, which is great.
Well, with Palace losing to Newcastle as well, I think if Palace had won their game in hand,
yes,
they would have probably been in the conversation, but now it is just a straight shootout.
It feels that way, unless Palace ruin it by winning the cup, but
Yeah, we need that to not happen.
yeah,
that
for lots of reasons.
not ideal.
it'd be quite distressing, I think. But the nature of those teams have all been quite erratic.
Yeah.
You know, Fulham, that's just part of the DNA at the moment. Brighton have flattered to deceive. I don't think they're on a particularly good run at the moment themselves. Dropping points to Leicester, I think, last time out. That's not really a good sign, considering how terrible Leicester are. And then there's Bournemouth, and that's the disappointment, is that it's given Bournemouth a lift, you know, when they really needed it. But, you know, ordinarily, if you were to take away the fact that Bournemouth were in that little bad patch and that Fulham had just come in off the back of beating Liverpool, you'd kind of go, actually, you know, it's Bournemouth away. That's
Games
so
like
many,
that can happen,
yeah,
right? I think this is it. It's the kind of frustration around it is to do with us, right? And it's to do with the fact that we can't string together these runs of results. And I think Peter's right about the erratic nature of these three clubs in different ways as well. Bournemouth seem to go through streaks of, you know, they'll win 3-4 in a row, something that Fulham just can't achieve this season, and then they'll lose or, you know, fail to win 3 or 4 in a row, which hasn't been how Fulham's season has gone. And Brighton are a little bit more like Bournemouth in that they seem to go through these kind of roller coaster periods, whereas Fulham is just up, down, up, down, up, down immediately. And I think that I don't know where that trends in terms of the end of the season. Like, I don't know if this is something that gives Bournemouth a lift to go and win 3 or 4 games, because if they do that, then I think they're in the driving seat. Whereas, you know, with us, it's been so up and down per game. We've been able to raise ourselves for the bigger games across the course of the season, I think. You know, we come into this one and look, it's frustrating, obviously, to concede in the first minute. Like that's never an ideal kind of situation to be in, but it also means that you have 89 minutes to sort that out. But I think in terms of, you talk about luck of the draw, right? We make a mistake there and Anthony Robinson, the ball comes off his heels and obviously Semenyo picks it up. And from there, he's still got loads of work to do. Anderson doesn't do enough, I don't think, in terms of coming out to close him down. But, you know, he gets the break and he takes it. Whereas we get that break, you know, in the first half where Rodrigo Muniz gets played clean through by that mix-up in the Bournemouth defence, and we don't take that opportunity. There's a couple of chances. Yes, Bournemouth hit the bar as well. I think if that game had ended 1-1, there wouldn't have been loads to complain about. As it is, I don't think would have been loads, you know, there is loads to complain about us losing it 1-0 because, you know, it was 2 relatively well-balanced teams. Bournemouth took their opportunity, Fulham didn't, and that's kind of the way of it. So, yes, frustration. I think there's been a little bit of a kind of like, oh, no, it's all off again. I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to stay serene as opposed to going up and down with every loss and win, and I think that's been the case for a little while now. So I think that, look, it's about bouncing back. It's about putting ourselves back in that driving seat. And we have fixtures that are winnable towards, you know, the end of this season. let's go and do it and hope that that's enough.
Yeah. I mean, Peter, it felt like, from a neutral perspective, like quite an entertaining game of football, despite it being 1-0, despite it not having a lot of, like, it just felt like quite...
It was sloppy.
Entertaining it wasn't. I mean,
Oh,
I
okay.
said to you before, like, I watched the game and I was trying to be like, yeah, no, I watched the start and I watched a bit of the end, but it was actually because I kept drifting in and out because I couldn't quite engage with it in the same way that you guys will be fully engaged with it. There were a lot of errors in it. It felt quite untidy. Bournemouth play that way anyway. That's how they want to play. It was so many fouls, constantly disrupting the flow. I think that affected Fulham. I think the whole nature of the start of the game changed Fulham. And Fulham seem to have this, like if you start well with Fulham, generally the game goes in that direction. It seems you don't always get these. I mean, Fulham have pulled off some great comebacks, most goals from subs as well. So there is that capability to change things. But sometimes you do get a mood setter with Fulham and it's like, we're behind. That sort of optimism bounce from the Liverpool game is gone and it never really came back, I don't think. And because of how stop-start the game was, because of the amount of fouls that have been committed, referees aren't going to give particularly many cards in those games. And I don't think you probably want to either.
No. You start booking players in those kind of games, you end up with 4 players sent off.
Oh, 100%. And it wasn't that kind of game. But it did make it not the prettiest watch. I think there was an element of frustration, particularly with Fulham's build-up and particularly in the second half, just again getting into areas without really hurting Bournemouth, when Bournemouth are a team that generally concede quite a few goals. And the fact that there weren't that many clear-cut chances afterwards is probably the biggest frustration.
Yeah.
And maybe you can make a case to saying maybe Willian could have come on earlier, or I like that TC came on earlier. I think the previous game that I'd watched in full was obviously the FA Cup game. I was actually away with some friends. I'm not into rugby at all, but they like Harlequins and they have their annual weekend away, and it was in Bath and it was great. And Quins are terrible, so it wasn't that much fun.
That's ideal as well.
Anyway, but I was watching the game in a pub beforehand, and that was incredibly frustrating. And it was the same pattern as the league game. And that was a game you think, because when Kearney came on, it sort of changed the flow a little bit. Didn't think he quite had the same impact in this game.
I thought he was sloppy, and it's very rare you say that about Tom Kearney. You know, I thought his passing was off. I thought he wasn't able to get any sort of grip on the game. Now, it probably didn't help that everyone else around him was making mistake after mistake as well. But you know, normally when TC comes on, you're like, well, he'll be safe in possession. You know, he's not gonna give away the ball too many times. And I thought that for the first time this season, perhaps he came on and was just a little bit wasteful with some of the passing, etc. But that probably you could probably expand that argument to everybody within the team. You know, we would say Alex Iwobi doesn't lose the ball. How many times does Alex Iwobi knock it out of play when he was trying to find a crossfield pass? We don't see that from him, you know, and that probably speaks to the frustration that Peter's talking about from the squad about the way that this played out.
And they just couldn't get a rhythm. That was it. Then Bournemouth come into that as well in the way they're playing, because that's what they're deliberately trying to do, to be disruptive, and then it all comes together.
Well, interesting that we're talking about the subs. I heard Avas's conspiracy theory about this on Monday's pod, and I actually think there might be some logic to it. Obviously, there was this whole mix-up that Sessegnon shouldn't have come off, and apparently it was Sasha Lukic who should have, and the fourth official misread. It's the most Fulham thing ever. Misread the two for a 3, with Sasha being 20 and Sessegnon being 30. But then Kearney comes on for Sander Berge, and I do reckon that it's unlikely, in my opinion, that Marco Silva wanted to take off Sander and Sasha at the exact same point in the game. That feels like quite a big move.
It would have also meant that it was a midfield 3 of Pereira, Kearney and Iwobi.
Yeah.
Which feels a little bit light.
I just can't believe. So I do think that although everyone kind of joked about it, isn't that funny? Fulham didn't mean to sub off. But I think the fact that we then had to sub off Sander Berge, if that is correct, obviously we've got no confirmation of that, and Marco didn't go into that much specific detail. That is quite a big thing to happen in a game. You've got your game plans there. They probably worked out at half time. We're going to make these subs quite early in the game. To not be able to take off who you want, and Kearney coming off a Berge, I was surprised when it happened. To me, I thought it made quite little sense, because I thought Sander was playing all right in this game and he was quite key at the base. I would be livid if I was Marco. I get that mistakes happen, and ultimately it was kind of nobody's fault, really, but it is a bewildering situation.
Yeah, really weird. again, it depends on the error. Like, how bad is the handwriting here? Like, how much of an error is this?
So many pinch points.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are we trying to actually pinpoint where the error is made?
Yeah, and where the blame lies. I
Or
mean,
like someone being like, "Oh, we're bringing Sasha off," and them just writing 30 down. Yeah. Like, oh, I just had a brain
complete
muddle.
brain fade. Yeah, it was actually Anthony Robinson. They wanted to be
Yeah.
off. I don't know why, but 0. But meant to be 0-3. No, I think what annoyed me about that situation is it was clearly an error very quickly. Like, it wasn't like the sub's been made and then they've sort of gone, oh, actually, I don't want to do that sub. Let's change our minds. It was like obviously an error very quickly. And yes, the law is that once the player has gone off and a player has gone on, that's it, substitution done. It just felt like you could have resolved it. Like, it's just a little bit of common sense, been like, yeah, this is clearly an error. We can see it. It's written down. So if it's on the note, then for me, that's a situation where you go, common sense, like, fine. But I guess the counterpoint is that
it's laws of the game, right? Like, because imagine the absolute furore if Sessegnon had done that, come back on, and then, by the laws of the game was supposed to be off. Bournemouth would have launched a lawsuit. Like, if Sessegnon scored twice in the last 5 minutes, like, they would have been like, no, that player was off the pitch and came back on. Like, there would have been uproar. So I can understand why the officials have decided they're going to stick with their decision. Yeah. I just think that that maybe we should probably apply some common sense to the law that's written down there.
But I mean, so when I did my reffing qualification, obviously this is like dog and duck level, so it's not comparative to the actual Premier League, millions on the line, blah blah blah. But you're still taught that Law 18 is common sense and that all application of the laws should have in mind the context of the game. You are the official, you control. You apply the laws as you see fit. It just feels like in that scenario, it's not like what is gained by an admin error being enforced? If Bournemouth would do that, fine. But then, Bournemouth were relegated when I was covering them, essentially because the Hawkeye didn't work for a half, and was it Sheffield United scored but didn't score? I can't remember which round it was. It was against Villa, that game. Anyway, so maybe it's a very litigious environment, the Premier League these days. So maybe there's room for that kind of scope. But it's just annoying. It's just clearly it's so clearly an error, and it's not to do with the game. And the laws are there to assist the running of the game, and so that we have the actual football working fine.
Yeah,
I think
not to enforce a sub that was done by mistake because someone's handwriting is terrible. Yeah,
and it seems to me like that being the threshold. If the game had restarted,
I agree, but maybe that just needs to be written into the rule book.
If the game had restarted, totally, you can't just change your mind once play's restarted. But it's an odd one.
But, you could also say
see it again for 15 years.
No, and you could also say
game, not just Fulham.
Yeah, and you could also say Sessegnon shouldn't leave the field. Like, why is it weighted and why is no one clocked that Sessegnon has walked off?
Yeah.
Because he's on the other side of the pitch, wasn't he, at that time?
He was on the near side. So,
okay,
and we were 1-0 down. So in Sessegnon's interest to get off as quick, and obviously Adama was probably just a bit like, player
I just want to get on. Yeah. Why
so it all makes sense as to why it happened. It was bewildering in the stands because obviously, the place where you have the least information is in the stands, especially on the far side. We were just like, none of us. It wasn't even in my mind that was. I didn't even know that was a rule.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even have thought that was actually a possibility. And then murmuring started going around the away end that he didn't actually mean to take off Sess.
But if it is a Fulham error, then you kind of just have to suck it up, right? If
Marco seemed to be pretty insistent that it was a refereeing error, but he would.
Marco often is.
Yeah.
The way he phrased it, maybe it's a bit. It did seem to imply that it didn't allow us to change it. Which does that mean that what we gave them was incorrect, or the other way around? If it's a refereeing error, even more so, why can't you just correct it? But that didn't happen,
feel like they should auction off the note for the foundation. That would be £100 straight in. I'd bid to get that note.
Just to see it.
Just
to see what the handwriting.
I'd want to put the note on the wall here, just forever, in a frame.
Frame it.
Yeah.
Well, particularly if Fulham finished 2 points behind Bournemouth in 8th and 9th. So.
Yeah, then maybe I won't want to frame it.
No, maybe not.
We'll see how we go.
All right, we will take a break there. After that, we'll look ahead to Sunday's game against Chelsea at the Cottage. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast is Sammy here with Peter and Jack on the Thursday Club. If you're heading to the SW6 Derby on Sunday, make sure you pop into Craft Beer Co. at Hammersmith Broadway. Beautiful family-run pub with a wide selection of beers, ales, ciders from all across the UK. It's a lovely setting right by the tube as well. A perfect first destination for your little pre-match pint walk down the Fulham Palace Road. What a big game. The SW6 Derby at the Cottage. Obviously, Jack, amazing memories from Boxing Day.
Oh, absolutely.
I keep meaning to look up the last time that we did the double over Chelsea. I believe it's the 30s, but don't quote me on
never
that.
Happened.
Is it never happened?
In the league? Nope.
Never happened in the league. So it could be a real big box tick for Fulham. My biggest problem here is that I've got confidence, and whenever I'm confident that Fulham might do something, tends to be when Fulham don't do something. So weirdly, my confidence is giving me no confidence.
The win-loss sets us up nicely, right? Like on paper, this is a win. Obviously, it doesn't work like that. It would be great if it did.
We actually had a conversation in the car on the way home. I think I know the answer. I think I know every fan listening to this answer, but it is an interesting one. Would you rather keep up the run, but it means you have to lose to Southampton?
Yeah.
Or...
Well, yes.
Southampton, that is a losable game, though.
Yeah,
they've got rid of Ivan Juric. They've got nothing
with
riding
the
on
Rusk
it.
back in charge.
Yeah. Oh, bloody hell.
he got a point at Craven Cottage, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I can't believe we have to face the Rusk twice last season. Absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, Southampton's for next week. That's next week's issue. Yeah, I would keep it up. Yes, correct. That's fine. I would take a loss to Southampton to beat Chelsea at the Cottage. I think that's pretty reasonable. Also, like Southampton are, they're not like we could catch Chelsea. We can't catch Southampton. And they won't catch us.
Fortunately. I mean, look, such amazing memories from Boxing Day, right? And weirdly, like, that was a little bit of the kind of start of the decline for Chelsea, that game. We went into that with a lot of draws, not too many wins, and Chelsea were on pretty good form going into that.
That's what I remember saying, I did the pod straight after Boxing Day. And I remember saying at the time, yes, we beat them at the Cottage, a couple of years ago, but they were in shambles, right? And, at that point, you're like, yeah, we've beaten Chelsea. It was still amazing. I'm not taking away from that moment. And, seeing it with Carlos Vinicius doing the damage as well, comedy. But, like, there is an element, I think, to that where you were watching it and being like, yeah, but this is a Chelsea at a very, very low ebb. And I think that made Boxing Day more special. Chelsea was second in the table at the time. They were a team who'd had a phenomenal start to the season. And yes, they'd just come off the back of that draw with Everton, I believe it was, beforehand. But there was no sign that they were, about to capitulate. They'd lost at that point once at home all season, and that was to Manchester City on the opening day of the season, back when Manchester City were good. So, to go there and win in that fashion, I think made it even more special. And you look at where Chelsea are now, and this is, it goes back to your confidence point, right? Like at that time, we went into that game being like, look, we're hopeful because we're a good side and we play better against the big teams, but this still feels like a long way off. And, the first half of that game, it felt a relatively long way off. It was only after Fulham started to claw their way back into it in the second half that you started to be like, oh, okay, this could be on here. They're falling apart in front of our eyes. And, potentially Rodrigo Muniz did start the decline here from a Chelsea perspective. At least put the kind of fear of everything into them. And there was a frustration around Stamford Bridge that day that I hadn't seen at any point, earlier in the season. So, yes and no, but you get to this point, you're like, Chelsea's away record of late is pretty woeful, especially in the Premier League. Fulham have this win-loss thing, which tells us that after a loss we tend to bounce back. All the signs point to this being a win. All the narrative sings, and I know what happens when the narrative sings. We get stung by the narrative. So, like, trying to analyse this from a sensible kind of step back point of view is hard because it's Chelsea at home in a game that's winnable to do a double for, as we say, the first time ever in the league. You're like, wow, okay, this is, hold your breath, we could be on here. And they're the moments that are frustrating, and that's why it's really difficult to actually sit down and analyse where this game is won lost, because we all know that these kind of things are just a little bit all over the place, especially in a derby. And to quote Brian's gun, the form book goes out the window.
Yeah. Peter, obviously, you've covered a lot of Chelsea this season. Where it still looks like a brilliant team on paper. Yes, there are a few players in wrong positions, you can clearly tell that the goalkeeper issue is pretty serious. But I still look at their team on paper, look at our team on paper. This shouldn't really be a contest that Fulham are going into feeling so buoyant and confident, but just seems like a bit of a mess over there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you're right, Jack. Like, because that Fulham game does feel like the point that things sort of fell off quite a bit for Chelsea, or at least was
you'd
visible.
love to see it.
It's yeah.
they got moonized.
And I think I mean, Jack's right. Chelsea haven't won away from home since December the 8th, which was Spurs. It's a very unhappy environment down the King's Road. They are not happy particularly with the style. That's put a lot of pressure on the manager. I mean, the game against Ipswich on Sunday was probably the strongest it's been. I mean, you mentioned the crowd at the Fulham game, but this, after they went 1-0 down when they were actually playing fine, completely changed the game. It led to the goalkeeper, Robert Sanchez, deciding not to kick it short, turn over the ball, and they conceded. Managers criticised the fans for the atmosphere inside the ground. This
never ends well for managers, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No one wins that battle long term.
No, exactly. And the thing is, I thought he had a point, what he was trying to say, but because he'd already criticised the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge, and because it's not as though the Chelsea fans are being served up entertaining football, it's slow tempo stuff. If you sit in a low block against this Chelsea team, particularly at home, the tension wrapped up quite quickly. I mean, the game against Brentford last time they were away, there was no tempo whatsoever. They take so long to get it to their wingers. By the time the wingers have got it, they're doubled up and they lose a turnover and game switches the other way. So if you're Fulham, you think, yeah, there's an opportunity here, especially if you can get at them quite quickly. But if you give them space, which is what Tottenham did, they can really, really hurt you, because they've still got Nicholas Jackson, Enzo Fernandez making more runs from deep, Cole Palmer. He hasn't scored for 14 games now.
Is it the Fulham game?
Good question.
It's probably close to
It's
it.
close
you might
to
have
it,
scored
yeah.
the Ipswich the time after that, or
I can't remember.
they lost that game.
I can't remember.
Yeah, they lost 2-0.
They lost 2-0. So yeah, it may actually be the Fulham game. Did he score? I can't remember. But anyway, it's a long time. So that's also a record that needs to end. But no, so they're a team in quite a difficult patch, and they have a very difficult run in, and they kind of need to finish in the Champions League places. So
they're looking pretty bad for that. When you look at the form of the teams around,
you look at like
100%.
Newcastle and Aston Villa starting to charge. Like, I think their best hope now feels like Forest falling off.
And they play them on the last day,
and that could be a barnstormer.
But then, like, City in there, and City look good as well, and Villa look fairly unstoppable. Haven't got the Champions League to worry about anymore. Like, I'm worried that Forest won't make it, let alone Chelsea.
We were talking about this on an episode of Ranks recently about Maresca and Chelsea, and one of the things is that he seems to be really focused on winning the Conference League, and I imagine that's potentially about having a trophy in his own cabinet, and, you know, being coming out of here, that even if it ends badly, being like, look, I won a trophy in my first season at a club. I think the fans couldn't give less of a monkeys. No. They're like, get us in the Champions League. We don't care about winning a trophy is winning a trophy. But like, if it was in terms of priorities, I feel like that's where, and there's a point of friction there on top of it. And all this basically to say that you want to divide this even further. You want that away end to be spitting. You want them to be, you know, really, really angry. An early Fulham goal here. And I think that away end turns on their manager very, very quickly, because they're ready to, right? Like they're already in that kind of headspace. And I think that that's the thing that Fulham need to, you know, be aware of, get on top of early doors. You hurt this Chelsea side early. You make them, you know, you get them on the back foot, and suddenly, you know, I have a lot of friends who are Chelsea fans, and they'll be like, we go behind and it's over. And I know that wasn't the case, obviously, against Ipswich.
No, but I was going to say that the key thing with the Ipswich game is, once after that first goal, complete head loss, like on the terraces, head loss, the players in particular, complete head loss. They couldn't, it's such a young team, there's no one there, just
there's no adults together in the room.
The rest of the half was just messy. Then they get to half time, manager has a go at them, fine, they score within 60 seconds. So if you score early, the game can get away from them quite quickly. So
I mean, the players that are impressing this season, despite the struggles, probably for me, Moises Caicedo, just this midfielder, seems great. And Nico Jackson, someone that is
really good football, yeah.
He seems like a really interesting player, Jackson. I can't quite pinpoint him, because he looks like sometimes he doesn't have the greatest touch, or his decision making isn't the best. And obviously we've seen his finishing ever since he's joined Chelsea, like sometimes be great, sometimes be not. But Chelsea fans seem to love him. Is it the kind of work rate and the passion as much as some of the skill and the hold up play? And
they're just way better with him in the team. Like he's one of those players that when you watch him in person, you really see it and you feel it. Like he's like this close to being an unbelievable Premier League striker, but the this close is taking his chances.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating.
It's incredibly and then the chances are good that he's missing. He's been injured in the second half of this season, and they didn't have a striker, which is remarkable considering the investment that they made in the team. That they've ended up in that scenario where Nkunku is a backup and he can't play in this system as a 9. But his all-round play is his work rate, and you'll see that on Sunday, the way he can harry defenders. He leads the press. He gets the best out of Palmer because he creates space for him because he runs in behind. He'll be a real handful for Anderson and Bassi, I'm sure. But I from a Fulham perspective, I think I wanted to say this because I think that probably I don't know if it's the most surprising. I think it's definitely certainly unexpected just how good defensively Fulham have been this year, and particularly Bassi, who I think is quickly becoming one of the best central defenders in the league.
Yeah,
in his all-round performances. So, but in terms of Jackson, he'll be a threat, but he's without a goal for absolutely ages as well. So, hopefully that doesn't turn from a
I was going to say, all of these records don't make me feel very comfortable.
Another player who starts against Ipswich, will he start on Sunday, is Tosin.
It's been very mixed. I couldn't tell you. Basically, Wesley Fofana is Maresca's favoured defender.
Yeah, because he's their best defender.
He's their best defender. He says he can defend 1v1 with big spaces behind him. Like, he's made a big play on that. It doesn't seem like anyone can sort of do that role in the same way. And when he's out the team, it's been mixed. Chalobah played right back against Ipswich. It just didn't work. He had Gusto and Reece James on the bench, which didn't really make sense. Feels like James is playing in midfield because of his fitness. He's only playing once a week. He'll probably play tonight, Thursday night, against Legia Warsaw. So will he play on?
That's kind of bad
on Sunday.
To prioritise a game where you're 3-0 up.
Yeah, it's
Maresca
maybe he won't.
League, I'm telling you.
He has rested players, but I think it was the Brentford game that caused so much. Like, why are you resting the players? But they had like 60 hours between the games from Thursday night to a Sunday Sunday early kickoff. It was the Spurs game that they played, and players like Palmer and Jackson and Neto were rested, but all of them had hamstring injuries literally just days before. So there was, but he didn't make that point very clear. So no, it didn't come across to the fan base. But yeah, in terms of, sorry, I've lost my train of thought completely there.
I was also
centre backs.
Centre backs.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. Levi Cole will probably, could be Chalobah.
Plus 1A another.
1A another, yeah. It's Tosin was subbed at half time against Ipswich.
Yeah.
So.
Well, also considering the atmosphere and the reception he got from the Fulham fans on Boxing Day, I don't know if they'll take him out of the firing line. Like,
I was going to say, if he plays, it will be because it was bad at the Bridge.
Oh, it was. Yeah. I mean, it worked. I think it's the thing you would say. Like, whether that's over the top or not is up for people to decide on their own. But like, it worked. He was unsettled, and he was. There's an argument to say he's at fault for both the goals. I think it would be a relatively harsh argument, but like, there is an argument that can be made if you want to make it, that he's at fault for both of those goals. And I don't know, do you give him the chance to, if you're Maresca, do you give him the chance to redeem himself in front of what is going to be a hostile atmosphere, or do you just take him out of the firing line? I'd probably be tempted to go with the latter.
But what's again, talking about a young team, he's the oldest in the team that's playing regularly, and he's seen as one of the main leaders in the group.
That's mad.
And he didn't really have that role with Fulham. I mean, he was a big character at Fulham, but Fulham's full of these older players. That contrast is pretty striking coming into this game, and because of the pressure that's on them, you're going to need some leaders on the pitch. So, so maybe that switches it.
Yeah. I wonder if Tosin plays, I think it may be one of the kind of like worst receptions.
Most vitriolic receptions for a former
player.
player.
Who would rival that from a Fulham perspective?
I mean, like
Harvey Elliott always gets a fair
Harvey Elliott gets a lot of stick.
But it was like 15, 16.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of, like, to leave on a free transfer and move to Chelsea, like, That really stuck. And I think with Tosin, it's slightly
Fabio
different.
Fabio got a bad one.
Fabio got a bad one. But I think that with Tosin in particular, it's the whole, you remember all the Instagram stories, the vintage kits, the, sitting around in his living room in all the old Fulham stuff. Like, I think people thought, oh, he's really bought into this. And also the fact that Fulham didn't rescue him. That's unfair. But to take him out of a City academy side that he wasn't really breaking into, give him that opportunity, bring him to, bring him to the Premier League and do all that, and then to walk away on a free, I think it really hurt a lot of people. It's especially when you kind of go, okay, there's one of Fulham's probably most sellable assets, and then to not sign a new contract and walk there. And, I think if you'd gone to Newcastle, everyone would have been a bit like, that's annoying. But it is what it is. To flip it to Chelsea is. Yeah, it's tough to take.
Yeah, there's not many, are there?
No, I mean,
get that reaction.
super back in the day, Louis Saha, I actually...
that was very public, wasn't it?
In hindsight, should never have got the reaction I think that he did.
No, and I think actually if you look back at it now, like Louis Saha could come out on the Fulham pitch now and no one would bat an eye.
No, everyone... he did, basically go on strike, and that was, I think, why the Fulham fans at the time were more angry about that. But he had the opportunities to join Fergie's United. He was only injuries away from probably being an unbelievable player for Manchester United. So, but yeah, I think Tosin's reception will be interesting, and yeah, it will be kind of fascinating to see whether if he starts, it's a lot of fun. Certainly,
It'll be very interesting. Very interesting.
From a Fulham perspective, Jack. Well, he went unchanged against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
I don't see him making any other changes unless...
You think he'll go same again?
I can't see why he wouldn't.
Adama, particularly in the way that Maresca inverts his fullbacks, just stick Adama on one of the sides and just hit him on the transition.
Yeah, I think he might look the way that Adama
Does that
played,
then mean Raul needs to come in as well?
I think so. Yeah. Also, without being funny, Rodrigo did okay on Monday night, but he didn't set the world alight, and he scored a really important goal for Fulham coming off the bench against Chelsea. I wouldn't be surprised to see Adama and Raul come in here. I think that's probably all the changes they make, unless he puts Kenny Tete back in for Timmy Castagna, which I think is a possibility given that he is now back to full fitness.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised not to see Tete off the bench on Monday. I know that's when you're chasing the game, switching your right backs.
Yeah.
Who knows with the whole substitution melee, whether maybe Tete was in the plan, but then Silva had to change things up because he wasn't allowed to take on and off who he wanted.
I think that's what it will be. I think it'll be Tete, Anderson, Bassi, Robinson, obviously Leno in goal, Sander, Sasha, Pereira, Adama, Raul, Iwobi.
Wasn't the start of the season? I mean, Troy was excellent at the start of the season, but a key part of that
was relationship
with
Tete.
Tete.
Yeah.
And I think Fulham have probably missed that a little bit, that combination, because he's just so solid behind him.
I mean, I'd love to see it. It'd be a lot of fun if we did go with that. And yeah, I think the beauty is as well with both, I think Sessegnon deserves to get some minutes, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, Sessegnon has proved that he can do stuff off the bench as well as when he starts. I'm all for the Sessegnon.
I obviously wouldn't be upset if Sess starts this game. I think it would be perfectly reasonable, considering I thought he was one of our better players against Bournemouth until he went off. He hasn't done, let's not say loads, but it hasn't done.
He was intended to go off.
Of course. He hasn't done loads wrong to warrant being dropped, but I think Peter's probably right. Can you attack the space in there? And the Adama Cucurella duel going back on again, you'll remember that from the bridge. It was a little bit fiery down that right-hand side. I wonder if Marco just unleashes that again.
Yeah, I've been won over here. I think that's I think that is the play. If Tete's fit, of course. But even if Tete isn't fit, still I think Adama and Raul, and as you say, if Marco's living by the sword and dying by the sword, Muniz didn't play that well against Bournemouth. He did miss a fairly big opportunity, and Raul never really did too much to get dropped.
To be dropped in the first place. Yeah.
Either. So that is the beauty that Marco's got there, is basically one bad performance, and that could be you losing your starting
a little bit of nous. We were just talking about Chelsea's lack of experience there, right? We're talking about the centre-backs and there not being loads of players who have that kind of nous on the pitch. There's not that many leaders. Raul is a player who'll be able to pick holes in things. He's a smart footballer. Like Rodrigo is a wonderful footballer, but he's a bit more of a wrecking ball that you kind of unleash. And, I think you can do that in terms of, when you have experienced defenders, and we saw it against Liverpool, obviously, with Van Dijk and Konate, like you just chuck Rodrigo at them and be like, go on, just give him chaos and see what happens. Like, I think with this Chelsea team, if you have a little bit of experience and a little bit of nous, you might be able to thread holes in it. And Raul might just be that guy.
Cool. Let's do some emails then. This one from Carl Meekings. Peter, you'll be able to answer this one, considering that you saw him firsthand plenty of times. Carl says, hello, Fulhamish team. Couple of years listener, first time emailer. Love to see it.
Welcome, Carl.
Do we miss Palhinha? Not for his crunching tackles, but because he could hit a screamer from outside the box. That aspect of Palhinha's game felt like it introduced another threat for opposition teams to deal with. Started going to watch Fulham in 95-96, so can't really complain about any season since. These are truly the glory days. All the best from Carl. Certainly agree on the last point.
Not enough worldies. Yeah, get behind that.
I mean, there is an element of Sander, and I kind of respect this about his game. I find it hilarious when the Fulham end shouts shoot whenever Sanders got the ball from 30 yards. I'm just like, he will not do that.
But he did, though, didn't he?
Once, against us.
Against Fulham, yeah. It was an unbelievable goal.
Yeah, good point. He just never shoots. So
Palhinha didn't have, it's important to know, he didn't have that many rockets. It wasn't like
There were a couple.
Yeah, there was a couple.
Leeds was the unbelievable one.
Forest and Leeds, they're the ones that spring to mind. That might have been it. There might have been one more. But it wasn't like he was banging them in every week.
He was more of a threat from set plays, I think.
We do maybe miss that a bit. But I think that maybe the point that we need a little bit more from outside the box is a valid one. I think we miss Harry Wilson as much as anyone else from that kind of, that kind of space outside the D to be able to try and bend one. But yeah, I would like to have Palhinha back, but I don't think it would be because of his screaming ability.
I think it's been one of the most impressive things, actually, is that Sander Berger feels like an upgrade on Palhinha in terms of what he's brought to the team. And I think Palhinha, because of his style, is so dominant in a game and could stand out.
Visually dominant.
Yeah, visually dominant, and that gives you like a bias towards him. But actually, in terms of everything else that Berger does, and I remember when Berger signed, I was speaking to some people about him, and it was coming back to me, and they were saying his all-round game, like his numbers are really good. Look at his progressive passes. Look at his ability to switch the play. And I was like, Sander Berger, look at his speed. I was like, what speed of Sander Berger? But then you actually break it down, his carries, think actually he's actually a bit more well-rounded than Palhinha was, and that's why Berger was one of on United shortlist. Like it wasn't like Fulham had just pulled a guy who'd just been relegated, and he wasn't one that could suit in the Premier League. This was a very smart buy actually in the end, and I think we've seen with how Palhinha. I mean, why Bayern bought him and why they spent that much money on him? I don't really.
It felt
know.
like I was thinking about this recently. That when a player is linked with a club for so long, that they feel like when the opportunity arises, they almost have to do it, even if it doesn't actually.
So you're still saying Dwight Gale is on?
Yeah, no, I think we might sign Jason Kumas soon as well. But it felt like almost by the time they made that decision that they were going to sign him.
Yeah, but was it like Tuchel? I think it was like a Tuchel.
And then
thing?
They switched managers, and they were like, "Well, he's available now, so we're going to buy him anyway." And I think companies like. Yeah, nah, don't need that. Although, we're talking about Sander Berger, played for company. So there is that element. What I do like about Sander, and I think this is maybe the most impressive part about this, is, I know we've gone off topic, but it is what it is, is that when we signed him, I wasn't 100% sure he was definitely going to be a 6. Because what we'd seen at him at Burnley and Sheffield United in particular was him playing a little bit more further forward, in front of a controlling midfielder who was able to get the tempo. He'd been pushed, he'd been Declan Riced. And when he came in, he obviously played 6 when he was coming through at Genk. And when he was doing that, you were like, okay, but how does that then move forward? Because we've not really seen that in the Premier League. That transition back there, I think, is perhaps one of the most impressive bits of coaching that we've seen this season from Marco and his staff, that they've got him so comfortable in that role, and also that ability to interchange with Sasha so that Sasha can pick up the ball deepest some of the time and push to Berger, who is a very, very good driving runner. And we don't necessarily use it all that often, but it's a good tool to have. And it's how the first goal comes about against Liverpool, because Sander goes marauding through the middle of the park and Sasha's picked up the ball at deep. That's an interesting weapon to have in the artillery, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting for me how I wouldn't say, I felt like Sanders' signing was a bit similar to Alex Iwobi's in that I don't think there was a huge amount of fanfare because of the circumstances amongst the transfer. I think everyone spent the whole summer imagining that we were going to sign Andre.
Yep.
And the Andre, I think, so to the point where we all just so badly wanted Andre. It seemed so exciting. He's Brazil's number 6. It's going to be Andre.
Good player, by the way.
Yeah, good player. Yeah. But like, I'm pretty happy that we went for Sander.
Yeah.
In the end, and I think because I thought at the time I was like, oh, Fulham gone for the cheap option here, and I think things like 2 relegations do add a huge kind of downward weight to your CV, just generally, a bit like Aaron Ramsdale right now, right? Everyone kind of sees Aaron Ramsdale as a bit of a joke figure. Would not be surprised if Aaron Ramsdale goes to a Premier League team next season and is one of their players of the season, because he's a good goalkeeper. He's just in a Southampton side that's a mess, and I think Sander, not quite to the same extent, had that bit of just baggage, right?
Stigma attached.
Yeah.
And actually, he's come in, he's playing in a good team, and he's kind of playing better than ever, really. So, yeah, although to the initial question, I do just sometimes would like to see, I do think we do take shots. We just, especially in the last few games, right, we conceded a lot of long-range goals, and I am there going like, it'd be nice if Fulham did that once in a while.
Also, like, there is something, long-range shots have been kind of phased out by a lot of managers, not by all, and I think that's a kind of misnomer considering how many we've seen in the Premier League this year. But, often it is pick the better pass, because long-range shots aren't always a particularly sensible thing. But taking the odd one does mean that teams come out to you faster, and it potentially opens up spaces as much as anything
Deflections, things like that, saves, rebounds. Yeah.
Like, but even the idea that we might hit that shot, like, I think teams are probably like, we can stand off Sanderberger, he isn't going to shoot. Whereas if he does a couple of times, then maybe teams come out a little bit faster, there are openings behind, etc. It is worth having variations in these attacking patterns, because there's a reason that, you try and keep defences off guard.
Yeah, that's it for me. I think it is just that little bit of unpredictability. Occasionally Sander just hit one, just purely so they don't just assume that you're always going to pass it, because it becomes quite easy to read, certainly when you watch Fulham a lot. Lewis Creemore asks, hi Fulhamish, more and more as the weeks go by, I notice that most of our opposition go into a huddle before the game, but we never do. Does this matter at all, or is it symptomatic of the weak leadership in the group? Wow.
Weak leadership. Oh, wow. That's brutal.
I mean, I think there is an element of, I don't think Fulham have really got any natural leaders. I personally think the huddle's a little bit of, I mean, look, I don't hate it, but I also think it's just a little bit for show.
I quite like it when teams go into a huddle, but mostly because it's just enjoyable, like, as opposed to anything else. I think there are, issues within some of the leadership aspects of Fulham. I do think that maybe this group could do with a couple more assertive characters, but I don't think the huddle is the reason for this.
This one from Simon. This is about the Riverside stand. He said, following on from an email question on Thursday about the capacity of the Riverside, I was given a tour a month ago, and the hospitality areas I saw were still very much a building site. Lots of kitchen and backstage areas, members bars, and most importantly for capacity, many entrances and staircases were completely out of action and not safe for the public to access. They looked to be in the painting/final fix phase of most sections, and the chap showing me around assured me that everything was due to be finalised in June, which seems pretty realistic. I'd be pretty confident in saying that it would be completely up and running for next season, but not the last matches of this one. In my professional capacity, I've seen a lot of hospitality areas recently, and the one in the Riversides are the best in class. So good news for those who can afford it. Onwards and upwards from Simon.
Key thing is the hotel and the leisure thing, though, I think, in terms of revenue, in terms of actually making an impact. And I don't know where that's at, but that was always seen as hospitality be done first, and then the hotel and the leisure thing will
be
come
kitted out.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lighthouse Social is up and running, isn't it? So
yes,
that's a way.
You're saying it. I mean, it's not necessarily something that maybe like that widely known about this Lighthouse Social, but it's an interesting move. I don't know. Does any other football club have a members club? So this Lighthouse Social is kind of Fulham's answer to Soho House, effectively. It'd be you'd pay a monthly rate of several £100, and you can go and work there, hold meetings there, you can get tea, coffee, probably there's like events and spaces that
we've talked about it a bit on here.
out.
Like, it's actually quite reasonable compared to quite a lot of the members club. I mean, like, I'm not a member of a members club, but like, if you were, it's actually like, if you compare them, it's relatively reasonably priced. It's just quite a difficult place to get to, the Cottage, right? Like, to walk down to for work every day, unless you live that side of Putney Bridge, or you're just going to stroll across the river and walk down. It seems like quite a difficult place that people just be like, oh yeah, I'll just pop by there. It's not like it's a 5-minute walk from a tube station or anything like that. So
I think that's the
don't
one.
know.
That's the one for me that I feel like I love the route. And it was interesting with the boat race on Sunday. There was a lot of content. I think that there's certainly, as a presenter that I used to work with in radio, who looked like she'd been invited down to the social club to take some photos, and she did a little Instagram reel of it. And look, it looks amazing. I don't think there's any two ways about it. It looks stunning.
My dad's got a couple of bits in. He's been given one to go into the hospitality for a game now, and he was like, it is amazing. It's as good as anything he's ever been to. So I think that the general gist of it is that it is quality. It's obviously incredibly expensive, but that's always a bit. We've always said this, right? Like, that's the bit I don't mind. If you're paying for hospitality and that's helping to kind of subsidize everything else and create revenues, fine. Like, there's never been any huge issues about that. I think it's when that feeds into the rest of the ground that people have started to to take umbrage with it, and correctly so. So like, there is an element here of being like, okay, cool. How do you find that balance? And maybe it's going to be found better as Peter says, in a hotel, and the leisure bit kicks in and all of those bits. That's fine. And the fact that it looks very, very nice, and the people have said it's very good in there. The class and the service is quality. So you got to take that and think that that's a good thing.
Yeah,
for the
it is
club.
a good thing.
It's just a question of whether that balances out the rest of the books and how that all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, obviously, you got a new job, Lighthouse Social. There's that.
That's still way beyond me, mate. Bloody hell.
Need a new office.
Media industry, jeez. No, yeah, not for me. I might visit, but
It's open on match day. I found that out recently, which is interesting. So you will remember you go in there for match day.
Oh, really?
Not to watch the game.
Right.
Like, I think it's stuff, but you could go in there for just to be in the building and whatever. You could maybe get, I don't know if you get discounted. I don't know how it works. I've not been in. But
yeah,
most of these clubs have discounted drinks and stuff, I assume.
That seems quite nuts. You got to be careful arranging your meetings, right? It's
3 p.m. on a Saturday. The roars coming through the walls.
Quite annoying trying to do a.
Yeah. Well, you're trying to do a thing, and all you're hearing is Chelsea fans abusing Enzo Maresca once they're 3-0 down.
I like this one from Michael Heatley, father of Drew of this parish. He actually asked me this. What I quite enjoy is I was next to Michael during Monday's game, and he actually asked me this question mid-match, and then I checked the inbox to see that the question was in the inbox as well. But I didn't have an answer for him during the match, and so maybe you guys do. He has got a point. He says, why don't we leave a man upfield when opponents have a corner? They then need to keep 2 men back for a possible trademark Leno long clearance. Meat and drink to Adama. Used to be a standard tactic. Why not now? I mean, he asked me this question as a corner for Bournemouth was taking place on Monday. Adama was on the pitch. And I wanted to be like, well, it's obviously... No, actually. Yeah, you got a great point there.
Yeah, I'm all for
Adama
that.
has been used as a real defensive weapon at corners. Do you remember this? He was the man assigned to mark William Saliba in the Arsenal game.
Yeah.
Because he's quite hard to actually get round because he is small and square.
An obstacle.
Yeah, he really is. He's just like that.
He's not who you want
He's
marking
there
you, is
holding him. He's just holding you in place. You're like, I'm not going anywhere. This is it. This is me now. I live here. So
It's good for the
I
spaces of
do
zone
think
one.
that probably is a part of why Adama in particular doesn't stay up, but I take Michael's point.
Maybe it's, I don't know. I was going to say maybe it's to do with if your team is slightly smaller than another team, you might need an extra body, but
we're not.
No, I always love the idea of an out ball. You always ping it long. Yeah.
I guess, is it that the downside of conceding from a corner, that's the most dangerous thing to happen here versus the maybe upside of maybe score. But I guess...
Yeah, but it's sustaining an attack, isn't it? So
but also Michael's point is that effectively it means there's two fewer attacking players in the box because you've got to mark the quick man.
One of the goals on my stag came from a corner from the other team, cleared long.
Yes.
So there we go. Maybe we should talk about it.
Similar standards,
Similar
obviously.
standards, yeah. We'll see 9-7 to us at the weekend. I do
I
nicely.
just want to see how many goals Fulham conceded from corners. 6 is third, joint 4th fewest, so they're doing all right defending set pieces.
Yeah.
So maybe it's working.
Maybe it's that.
Yeah.
There you go.
There must be some method to the madness. Right, that'll do for the pod today. Peter, absolutely wonderful to have you back.
Oh,
Obviously,
thanks
you'll
for
be
having
wearing
me.
your neutral cap on Sunday.
I'm always wearing a neutral cap, Sammy. What are you trying to say?
I feel like for the last 54 minutes we've got slight Fulham cap on Peter, but the neutral cap will
Fulham audience
firmly go back on as soon as he's left the room.
As soon as he gets back in, the press box at Craven Cottage, he's like, "Oh, it feels at home."
Yeah.
Well,
It's
obviously,
like us in the match.
and obviously, hopefully, we'll be able to get you back on soon to give us some kind of tips and pointers about the Conference League.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're
yeah,
well versed in the competition
I have been
now.
doing my travels. It's been fun. Yeah. Warsaw last week. So,
What's been your favourite Conference League travel so far?
Heidenheim. Not because of the place. It's just you'd never go there. It's just like a random small German town with a massive paper factory, like completely dominates the place. But I saw like an actual beaver in a canal on my walk back from the ground, which I don't think I'll ever repeat. So
Man,
That is wild.
there we go.
Literally.
Yeah, literally wild.
was
Yeah,
it Billy the Beaver?
it wasn't Billy.
Very good.
It was not. Very good work.
Jack, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sammy. It was a pleasure.
You're looking in fine state 4 days after your stag do.
Yeah, I feel it too. I feel very blessed, very glowy.
Right, Fulhamish will be back on Monday. You're hosting.
I am. I hosted after the Boxing Day game, so we thought we'd try and repeat the trick.
The omens are good.
Farrell and I are going for the kind of Chelsea podcast double this year.
I think
here we go.
we
The omens are good, lads.
We've just got to repeat everything that we did on Boxing Day. Same clothes, same routine, everything.
Yeah,
and just hope.
I'll be in the away end at Stamford Bridge watching the game on my phone.
if that's what it takes, Jack.
If that's what it takes, I'll do it.
You go to Stamford
I'll
Bridge.
see you there.
Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you for the review of whatever happens on Sunday on Monday. Have a great Easter weekend. Come on, you whites.
You whites.